Hey everyone, this is Corey with Stafford's EDC, and I kind of want to start a little series here on the channel, potentially, assuming I continue to get enough of this kind of knife in and around that I can show them off and talk about them. But I'm thinking of doing like a slip joint Saturday or Sunday. I'm not sure what day yet, but a video specifically dedicated to a single slip joint, just kind of going over it, talking about it, what I like, what I dislike, showing off the makers. You probably won't hear much about dislikes because these are knives that are going to be coming from my personal collection. There really aren't a whole lot of pass around slip joints that you see here and there. You might see a Jack Wolf or something that's being produced by like QSP, such as like the Ohio River Jack or the Lake Champlain Barlow that were done for TPK. The QSP Hedgehog, it's another one of those. But other than that, you're going to see mostly customs, GEC, and then maybe some older stuff as I continue to show these off. So first and foremost, the knife that I have today, this is a custom Nessie. This is built by Chris Taylor from TaylorMade Custom Designs, TaylorMade Custom Knives. It's one of those two names. I will try to put a link to his Instagram, website, Facebook group, all that good stuff down below. This particular knife here has these lovely, just gorgeous butterscotch paper micarta scales. You have brass for your bolsters, as well as a brass Federal shield here, which I really like. Brass liners as well. And there is a two-tone finish on the blade, as well as the spring here. I can't remember what steel this is. I want to say it's like AEBL, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. I do have the birth card for this at home, but I'm not home right now, so I don't have an exact blade steel for you, and it's not marked on the other side either. You might be able to see where it says Taylor right there. This is the this is the first custom knife that I got from Chris. I've owned two others. I still currently own one, but it is available for sale. You guys will probably get a video on that after this one posts. And then the other one, it just wasn't my favorite design. I did sell it. That was his Cochise model, which I no longer have. Like I said, I did sell that one. And then the other one I have is a Zulu, which is one of my favorite slip joint patterns that is out there. But let's talk about the Nessie today. The Nessie kind of, it's following that Nessmuk design. It doesn't look like a Nessmuk style, like fixed blade would, but this is kind of the characteristic look you have in a Nessie style slip joint. You have this big kind of speary leaf style blade, as well as this handle design. You have this continuous drop with the finger groove here, and these are usually pretty small. They're never tiny per se. If they're going to be tiny, you might see them called a mini Nessie, but you're not going to see them larger than this typically. You're looking at under 4 inches closed for this, and the blade probably just right around 3 inches, 2 7/8 maybe. The blade's not going to be much more than 3 inches though on many of these, though you might find a maker making a larger one. I've debated contacting Chris to get a slightly larger one made, but I probably won't be doing that, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. I do just want to continue to show off the knife first before talking about it more. You have the two-tone finish on the blade. There's an acid wash done to the flats here, and then you have the swedge that's ground in, and then a nice deep hollow grind that gets you to a very thin edge. So this is a performance-oriented slip joint. And something you may notice is that the pivot here is tooled. You actually have screws for your pivot. They are T8, whereas everything else on the knife is pinned. You have a pin for your, it's your middle pin here for the spring, and then you have a lanyard tube functioning as your bottom pin. That sets your tension on a slip joint. So this holds your spring in place, this sets your tension, and then rather than having a pivot pin, there's the pivot screw on this one. And the walk and talk and action on this is really nice. It's got a nice break to it, nice walk and talk. It's not ridiculously loud, but it's also not quiet or mushy at all. The pull on this is what I would call probably like a 6, maybe a 5. I tend to lean towards liking a much heavier pull on a slip joint. Nothing like irks me more than having like no effort at all to deploy a knife. Just like lefty EDC, you know, I'm a bit of a detent diva, so to speak. But slip joints especially, I want a nice pop to that half stop. This has that on the close and it has it on the open as well. It takes some effort to get it there, and I actually really like that. There's no nail nick or anything on this. This acid wash portion of the blade is nice to grab onto because it actually has, not that there's a texture to it, but it's got some grip to it. So you can very easily pinch the blade open from there. Overall, though, really nice walk and talk that I'm a big fan of. The internal liners are milled out so that way you're not marring up the blade either, which is a really nice touch that you don't see every maker do. Now, talking about size of this, as I mentioned earlier, I had thought about asking Chris to make a larger one of these, but I don't know how well it would scale. I think to go to the size that I would want, you'd have quite a large blade and quite a large handle, and I don't see a need for a slip joint that's more than like close to 8 inches overall. Is something that's a little crazy for a slip joint in my personal opinion. I own plenty of 4-inch slip joints. I say I own plenty. I own 4. 3 of them are the same model. So they're, you know, that's a size I actually really like. But I don't know how well it would translate in this particular style, this particular pattern. Needless to say, I wear large size gloves. I have pretty big hands, pretty wide hands. My fingers aren't super long, but they're fat. So you can see how this fits my hand. I can do 2 fingers here, and then kind of a finger and a half with the pinky. See, it wants to fall off, but I can just tuck it and get the pad of my pinky on there. And this actually locks into my hand really well. And what I tend to do is scoot it way up into my fingers and hold it like that, and I can get my whole hand on it. And then I got my thumb right on the spine, and that's nice and comfortable. And I can bring it down into a hammer grip if needed, and the pinky's not uncomfortable there, kind of hanging on the end. I never let my pinky hang off. It feels a little weird. I can do it, but for me it's just a little odd, and I'm not much of a lanyard person. I have one slip joint with a lanyard, and it's kind of on there for no reason, but I've had it on there long enough that I keep it there. But ultimately, I tend to hold this one like this. And you can kind of see what I'm talking about with, I don't know how well it would translate. You would need to make, the scaling would be weird because you can't just make the handle an extra ½ inch long and the blade an extra ½ inch long. If things are going to change in the length dimension, they're also going to have to change in the width dimension to keep the pattern looking correct. It's going to look a little odd otherwise. Might not have that Nessie look to it anymore. It might kind of look like a drop point trapper or some other type of pattern that maybe doesn't exist per se. Might look like a little bit like a Pacheco, which these are all slip joint patterns that I'm listing here, which is a whole conversation of its own. So ultimately, though, I don't think I would want to mess with this because I really love the profile of this knife. I think that Chris's Nessie design is one of the nicer slip joints out there, and the material choice is so nice on this. I have no idea what it would run from Chris table price wise to get one of these. I paid just shy of $800 for this. I bought it on eBay. I bought it used, and the only marks it has on it from the previous owner, there's a little bit of like tarnish and wear on the spring and on the bolsters up here on the back of the blade, which I really don't care about. I think that the tarnished look is really nice with, and there's actually some right there as well. But I really like that look of the brushed brass having a little bit of tarnish to it and a little bit of wear with this micarta. I think if everything was polished, it would look really odd. especially against that acid washed blade. But overall, I'm a huge fan of this knife, and it's one of my favorite customs that I have. I have like 3, 4 more custom slip joints. This was not the first custom slip joint I ever had, but it sure is one of my favorites. It's got great walk and talk, great action. The centering is nice. You can see it might be a little bit off center, but probably the easiest way to show it that way. But it's pretty close to dead on. There's no blade play. The spring tension's great, and the hollow grind is awesome. Makes this a great performer, which is ultimately what I have my knives for. I use all my knives. There's some knives like my custom slip joints that haven't seen use yet per se, but it's not that they won't ever be used. They're getting carried as a secondary knife maybe. But this has been used to break down cardboard, and it's phenomenal. It's not only a great looking knife, but it performs really well. And Chris is a super nice dude. I did have a custom Nessie fixed blade made by him that I ultimately ended up selling just because small fixed blades tend not to be my thing. And it was a lot of money to spend at the time. It was a little over $300, I want to say. And wasn't going to stick around, especially because I had my eye on this at the time. But overall, super happy. Really love this knife. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about it down below. Do you own a knife from Chris? Do you own a Nessie pattern? He's certainly not the only maker to make one of these. I just saw maker Rian Ross, I think is how you say his name, make one of these with blue C-Tech handles. Really nice looking knife. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you like this idea of a series. I have mostly slip joints in the collection now, so rather than just sticking with pass-around knives that are all modern locking knives, maybe I can talk more about these. I'm far from the most knowledgeable person, but the passion is definitely there for these far more than it is for the modern stuff. So let me know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed hearing me talk and ramble about this Chris Taylor Nessie here, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and take care.